In other words, what we're seeing is widespread reliance on foreign and particularly US service providers. Right? And this has led to concerns both on behalf of individual customers and European policymakers. And it's those concerns that I'm here to talk to you about today. Now, in our research, we really identified two key underlying concerns. The first is about the confidentiality of European customer data, and the second is about the availability of European services, or services to European customers. So what do I mean by that? Well, when I'm talking about the confidentiality of data, I mean to say, will your cloud provider hand over your customer data to the US government without informing you? Right? Because the US government can order them to hand over customer data either for law enforcement purposes under the Stored Communications Act, as amended by the Cloud Act, or in order to obtain foreign intelligence under FISA Section 702. And in both those cases, US production orders can target data stored in Europe. So merely having data stored at data centers within Europe does not protect your data from US government access if the cloud provider is subject to US jurisdiction. So that's the first concern around confidentiality. The second concern is different. It's about availability. And the question here is, can the US government order your cloud provider to stop providing services to you? Right? This is sometimes also referred to as the choke point effect. Right? It's when a government exercises control over a private actor and orders them to stop providing services or products to a certain market to further that government's political goals. And we've seen this in other sectors, right? We've seen the US and the EU cut Iran off from the SWIFT bank messaging service in response to its nuclear program, and we've also seen Russia decrease its gas supplies to Europe following the invasion of Ukraine. Now you might say, sure, Iran, Russia, those are adversaries. Right? But with the US, we have a long-standing NATO partnership. They are our allies. It's a very low likelihood that they would cut us off from the US cloud. And I'd probably agree with you, although who knows, right? What I will say for certain is that it would be very high impact, right? It would be extremely disruptive if US cloud service providers stopped serving European customers in the public sector or in the critical infrastructure sectors, right? That would have a huge impact on European society. So those are the two key concerns around confidentiality and availability. Now, I will add that these concerns are not new, right? There have been concerns about our reliance on foreign IT services since at least the 1970s, and concerns about US government access and US surveillance were highlighted by the Snowden revelations some 10 years ago. But there is, I would say, a renewed emphasis on these sovereignty issues, and part of that has to do with the second Trump administration. So I'll just highlight one example, which is the sanctions on ICC prosecutor Karim Khan. So in February of this year, the Trump administration imposed sanctions on Karim Khan, the prosecutor at the International Criminal Court, who had opened investigations into Israel's conduct in Gaza and the US conduct in Afghanistan. And as part of those sanctions, companies, institutions, and individuals cannot provide Karim Khan with financial, material, or technological support, right? And so 2 weeks ago, the Associated Press reported that as a result, Microsoft stopped providing Karim Khan with an email service, right? They canceled, they withdrew his Outlook account, and as a result, he can no longer access that service. Now, this is a developing story, and there's a lot that's not entirely clear about exactly what's happened here. But I will say that it illustrates the potential for the US government to weaponize our dependence on US cloud services to further their geopolitical goals, which might not always align with European interests.